Namaste everyone. Welcome to another session of Indic Studies Toronto. Today the topic is advocacy of Hindu causes in North America, and our speaker today is Sudha Jagannathan ji. She is a passionate and active in talking about topics and issues impacting Hindus in North America. Sudhaji loves to study the influence of Western colonization on various indigenous cultures around the world with a comparative observation to India's native traditions and religious practices. She is on the board of CoHNA, which is the Coalition of Hindus in North America. So, Namaste, Sudhaji. Welcome to the show, and please continue.
Namaste, namaskaram to everybody. And thank you to Indic Studies for inviting me to speak. I know you have invited very graciously other members of Coalition of Hindus of North America. So I'm going to bring up a few slides. We won't make this fully about slides. I think we can go through some of this and have an interactive session. But I think we are talking about a very important topic today, the power of Hindu advocacy in North America. And before we do that, I'll just quickly go through CoHNA. You all probably know who we are, a Hindu advocacy and civil rights organization, both in Canada and in US. And our goal is to really empower and educate and bring awareness to the Hindu community so that they can be advocates for whatever they are facing in their communities. Ultimately, the power resides in each of us. And advocacy is one thing you cannot outsource to anyone. You know, it's incumbent upon each of us to be an advocate for ourselves and dharma and our community, wherever we live. So we also have a CoHNA Canada with the same goals, but very specific to things happening to the Hindus in Canada, and you're probably aware of who they are. And what have we done? Advocacy sponsored by CoHNA. We have done a tremendous amount of work in education awareness at the political levels, where really you have to be visible and be seen and build a relationship. So we actually were the first Hindu organization to hold congressional briefings, which is really where you invite a Congress member, and that particular person sits and you get a chance to share with that person who you are, what you're facing in the country, and if you don't ask for help, you don't get it, right? So we are learning how to ask, and we have done 3 of them and done a tremendous amount of work with an outreach to lawmakers, not only at the federal level, but at the state level, city, county, etc. We're expanding the scope of it because we feel that we have been sorely lacking in representing ourselves at every level that Canada and the United States expects you to be showing up. The Hindu Advocacy Day, many Hindu organizations do that, but we have done 3 of them, and this year in the summer we'll do another. That is another opportunity where we get a chance to speak to our lawmakers, mingle with them, and then we bring on speakers. Last year we had Professor Salvatore Babunas. We had the Islamic American activist Aslan Omani. We had Indian Muslim who works in Saudi Arabia, Zahat Kandil. We have James. We have we collaborate with a lot of people. The idea is to show that we do not hold animosity with anyone, and we all are in this together to counter a narrative that people from India are oppressive people. And I want to stand up and say, I am not oppressive. I am probably the one culture that still remains, that has always been open to everybody, right? I mean, I come from Kochi, Kerala, which was the first place where the Jews and the Christians and Muslims came as refugees and traders, and were welcomed. And they still are present in the Indian society. So that's a cultural awareness that we bring to this country. But I feel like we have not represented ourselves as how pluralistic and accepting and open we are to everyone in the new homeland that we have all established ourselves in. So that is the context of the conversation today. So what is this advocacy and how does it impact us? We live in democratic countries and we come from a democratic nation, most of us, right? So we expect certain freedoms and rights, which are afforded through that democratic processes and a constitution of the government itself. But if you don't demand it, then you are denied it, right? So that is the reason we say, promote equality, justice, social change to really make
So,
impact.
Sudhaji,
Yes.
I think your voice is breaking.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay, I'll try to speak slowly.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well,
So what I'm trying to say is that the advocacy impacts how legal protections and rights are afforded to us, how we represent ourselves. Are we becoming visible in the community? Do people know about us? Does the law enforcement, police, and the district attorneys, do they know us? Most of the time, I would say they don't know us, right? Social justice, equity, that is actually weaponized against us because we don't speak it up. So education, awareness, community empowerment are all part of advocacy. And, and I'll go through some examples of where we are facing difficulties and how advocacy has helped to bring attention to our problems. So before we look at this thing called Hindu phobia, first of all, it's real, right? Canadians and Americans are facing all of this. And I know we have Indo-Caribbeans here and they have faced Hinduphobia for 150 years. So we cannot deny it, but it is being denied in countries we are in because we haven't had a definition of it. So if you go to understandinghinduphobia.org, please, I encourage all of you to go check it out. It defines what Hinduphobia is, gives several examples. We should all be familiar with what that stands for. A lot more work needs to be done in this area. So the term itself becomes has institutional recognition, which we don't have today. When you don't have institutional recognition, you are not able to access the possibilities, the methodologies that exist to get redress, right? So it's very important. I'll just go through some examples just to give you an idea of what can be called as xenophobia. We put swastika on our new car, on a house, especially during our festivals. Well, we have people in our communities who say their apartment manager came and said, you have to remove this. This is a hate symbol, right? So now we're denied to the religious freedoms that everybody has access to because there is no education and awareness that swastika is not a hate symbol. Then let's talk about a child. I don't know how many of you know this child being taken away in New York City happened because of a misunderstanding of a Hindu practice. It took the parents 8 months and $500,000 in legal fees before the family could reunite. I mean, just imagine, put yourself in those shoes. And so extremely important that we stand up and share about our cultural practices with, again, law enforcement, because they are the one, and the child protective and all that comes into play. Then let's say you work for a company and the company has added caste as a protected category. You have a right as a practicing Hindu, whatever the status of your visa is, to go to HR, ask for a private conference and say, by adding this as a Hindu concept, you are discriminating against me. I feel harassed and bullied just by the idea that my employer has added this to our HR policy. And that is illegal. We should know that it is illegal for a company to do that, but companies are doing it, like Apple and Microsoft and Salesforce and Airbnb and IBM, right? And if we don't call up, they keep it. And not only does it affect the Hindus in America or UK or Caribbean or wherever, it affects employees of IBM and Apple in India because of HR policies here translate to over there. How is a Hindu in India supposed to back to this American problem, right? The other thing I want to say is that a lot of times I want to say we raise good kids. Okay, we should be proud of the fact that we raise good kids, compassionate kids. But sometimes the compassion is misplaced because we have raised them without context, without letting them know what their roots are, what their history is, and the role of women and minorities in Indian communities that you'll never find anywhere else. Do we have issues in our community? Of course we do. Every community has it. There is no perfect society. But today, a child comes home from college and says, Mom, Dad, when are you going to atone for the sins of your ancestors? What does that tell you? That that child is responding to an Abrahamic concept of sin that carries through generations. We do not carry generational guilt. We are responsible for our own karma. It's individualistic. So I just wanted to bring this up and say a lot of the burden of raising conscious, strong Hindus resides on the parents who live here, parents like you and me, right? So that is an important thing. And the examples I brought are all mostly real. You probably have other examples in your families, and you should use every opportunity with your child to have a discussion, right? To explore it. If you don't know what the answers, there are many in the community that can help you. And even we provide counseling in many times. So let's talk about how this shows up in various spheres of our life: academia, media, politics, schools, and every facet of our life, we see examples. So this professor at Rutgers is very notorious, right, as a very Hindu-phobic individual. And advocacy has exerted pressure on Rutgers, but they don't care because Rutgers University has a huge number of Hindu students who go there because it's affordable. And we don't have a concerted way of influencing the university to have this professor voted. And so I just want to say I'm seeing more and more where the Indians and the Hindus in different forums are challenging this professor. You know, as someone coming from a culture of having destroyed 60 million Native Americans comes to India and preach about equality, right? So we have to call out such people. And Dr. Lavanya Vemsani is one of the very few Hindu professors who are brave enough to stand up and counter such nonsense. But when she does that, she is labeled, she's cancelled. You know, and in academia, it's very important to be not controversial. So you don't, you're not denied opportunities, right, to present, to participate in conferences, etc. But she has braved all that, right? And she still stands very firm on being a true Hindu. Just want to point out a recent action at the University of California, Los Angeles. I don't know how many of you went to UCLA, but a very popular university, public university, taxpayer-funded university for Hindu students, right? And Hindu professors and scholars. Well, there is a professor there, a very, very known Sharia professor, and he's the chair of an endowed fund. And because the conflict in the Middle East, he made some very inflammatory comments about Hindus. And I just put something here, and we can always, share this video link. You should listen to it. And this guy, we called out UCLA, I put the CoHNA tweet where we sent UCLA a letter asking to condemn this professor, and they haven't condemned here, because their claim is that it's academic freedom, First Amendment, speech protections, and that this professor did not say these things on campus, but on his website. But this is not the first time this stupid guy, sorry, this guy has said this. He's a repeat offender, right? So he's saying that Indian Hindu nationals are fighting on the Israeli side, enjoying killing Muslims. So it is a practice for us to eliminate Kashmiri Muslims. And on the other side, we see Kashmiri Muslim journalist in the British Parliament who says, hey, I am not running away from my country. I have no need to run away from my country because I have all the freedoms and more freedoms to be a Muslim in India and in Kashmir than in any other. Right? So we are not leaving this professor alone. We are continuing to write and take action. And we'd love to ask your support also. When you see a CoHNA tweet on this, please amplify that and spread the message so more people understand that the Hindu community is not sitting back anymore. And many of you may be familiar with this dismantling Global Hindu Conference that happened 2021. What's more important is the fact that it happened during the 20th anniversary of 9/11, September 10 to. That was not accidental. It was purposeful that the conference organizers put it exactly there. Because if the Hindu community had stayed quiet, in 20 years, our children would be learning it's the Hindus who caused 9/11. Is that correct? Is that right? Please agree with that. If you do not agree, I will ask you to engage, speak up, and be a volunteer in some organization, or so you can really represent yourself and your community. Because the cabal that is aligned against us want to pin all sorts of things on us. And if you don't speak up, then of course we deserve, whatever comes our way. That's all I can say. So, the DGA conference was very, very obnoxious. And my own university, I went to University of Southern California in LA, they were sponsors. So I wrote to the president, provost, and the dean, and I said, why aren't you also conducting a series of dismantling global Islam, global Christianity? Oh no, this is the academic freedom, and we don't have anything to say. What kind of a cop-out is that? I have not let them off the hook, let me tell you. So we are continuing to push back on USC and UCLA on them because they expect you to go away. Why should we go away? We live in this country, right? But I do not contribute or donate to USC or universities like this anymore. Our Hindu money should stand only for Hindu causes. Do not give money to these universities, especially in Canada and the US. Call them out, write to them and say, I'm stopping my donation because you have acted against my community, my faith, and never apologized when you show the truth and the facts in your face. It's very interesting that our campus in students face. Indo-Caribbean students who live in the United States and are in universities, they say, when they talk about Hinduphobia and decolonization, they are accused of being political agents in India. Many of these people have never been to, right? They are probably citizens of Guyana, Suriname, many other countries, and they come here and they are American citizens, maybe, or American, students, but they are accused of being political agents of India. We need to stand with that. I think Canada, the Oak Kennedy University, I think students they wanted to do a Rath Yatra, and a bunch of students came and said that term is offensive. Why? Because anything to do with Hindu faith is offensive to a lot of people. And they try to deny us that opportunity and the freedom to express our religion. Of course, the students didn't stand for that. They went ahead with the Rath and indigenous. That's what I would tell you too. Please celebrate your festivals with a lot of gusto and pride. do not be bullied or harassed. If you are bullied and harassed, your children are bullied and harassed, engage the larger community. Let us all come together. The Hindu festivals on campus, and I have a different slide. They say, how can you celebrate when minorities are being oppressed in India? Really? So we have conducted at CoHNA several interviews with Indian minorities, Indian Muslims, Indian Christians, who have told very publicly they are not oppressed by Hindus or the government. If there is oppression, it comes from their own community. Now, what can we do about it in the US? We have to learn about this, watch and listen to the people who are the minorities in India who are standing up as proud Indians, right? Bring their voices to the folks who are talking this way, to universities, to our lawmakers, and let them know that they should not be so gullible that they believe in incorrect narratives when their own experience with Hindus have always been positive. This one is interesting to just show how devious sometimes Hindu phobia can be. So a couple of years ago, NASA published a very positive, proud, tweet about their new interns, a very diverse group of kids. Obviously, it didn't sit well with some Indian sounding, Hindu sounding names. This Ashok Swain has been a very, very strong Hindu folk, India folk. He sits in some university in Sweden. And he called out and said, why does this Hindu kid needs to be surrounded by gods and goddesses? She's at home. This was during COVID. And she's proudly displaying her heritage. What's wrong with it? What's wrong is that this man has a very, abusive and hostile nature to him. And as soon as he put that, for about 48 hours, all sorts of comments about attacking her, nobody complimenting her and say, kudos, you got into NASA, we expect great things from you. It was all about how terrible she is because she dared to show her faith publicly, right? And good thing now, karma comes back, right? Ashok Swain's OCI has been cancelled by the Indian government recently. I'm very happy. Now, in schools, I have to say, are a place where our children face a lot of bullying and harassment, maybe not overtly, but in ways the way Hinduism is represented in schools. So textbooks are written by colonial powers and missionaries. We never had the opportunity to write our own narrative in Canada or America. That has to change. So what can we do? And today I know that Indic Studies posted on Facebook story of an amazing little girl in middle school who really made sure advocacy matters. The class I was discussing Aurangzeb, she raised her hand and said, Aurangzeb was not a hero, Shivaji was, and she gave an exhilarating story of Shivaji that captured the imagination of the class. Teacher went and verified all of that, and then the school district has now adopted the history of Shivaji as part of curriculum. I mean, we have to give a hand to a little girl like that. It was not an adult who did this, it is a student, but I give kudos to her parents because her parents had made sure that the kid is a good Hindu, Canadian, Hindu, American kid. She lives in Wisconsin and she has compassion, but she has a very good understanding of context, right? And that is where I think we as individuals, adults, have to play a role and encourage our kids to learn about India and be proud of who they are. So in many cases, schools play a game, a caste game, and parents have intervened and stopped it. Students have met with the teacher and said, I feel very uncomfortable with this. I would like to teach about Hinduism in my classroom. And the teacher says, go ahead. So Canada and US, I think we have opportunities. We don't have to sit back and just suffer through this. We can encourage our kids, teach our kids to be brave, and challenge this. I'll tell you, my own daughter, when she was in high school, I asked, did you learn about caste and sati? And she said, yes, we learned about sati. And we all stood up and told the teacher that was wrong. I was very proud of her because she did not know why pushing back and countering the teacher on sati was an important concept, and but she was brave to do that. But she was not alone. She had a bunch of other Indian students who had been to Bala Bihar, Bala Kendra, and had a pretty decent foundation on who they are and what their identity is. So I would ask you, please spend time with the children, answer questions, and teach them to be proud of who they are. Also, another important thing, run for school board. We have to show up in the school board because a lot of stuff is happening in school board that as parents in the community, we do not hear. By the time we hear, it's too late. So run for school board or join their DEI committee, DEI standing for diversity, equity, inclusion. Be included. Right now, we are excluded. Toronto School District, I'm not going to dwell too much on it, and look at this thing they had. Help Toronto schools heal from caste. Like it was a virus or a pandemic in the school, right? And how ridiculous it is, it's shown by this question answer. What happened in the district, the school board discussion? Trustee says, ask the question, what percentage of discrimination complaints have to do with caste system? And the Sadan or Sadan or that organization guy says, I have no idea. That's why we have to take this up and bring this into school. So this is a solution looking for a problem, right? And this is where Hindu parents need to be in schools to challenge. It should next time, in addition to trustee pie, I'd like to see some Hindus challenging this idea. We are not saying discrimination should be acceptable. No, we are saying that unless you have proof that there is caste discrimination on a rampant scale in Toronto school board and school district, this has no place in the schools, right? And these people don't have proof. Look, just by their responses, I have no idea. What, in terms of caste-based oppression, have we witnessed incidents? And the answer is no, we don't know because I don't think the students understand. This is BS, really. But it happens. They come into the schools because we are not there. And Americans and Canadians have a sense of social justice, and they are very gullible victims to any kind of atrocity, literature, or talk about a community whose faith is not understood, right? We have been here for a long, long time, but we are still a very misunderstood community. Now, I just mentioned, there was a movement in University of California systems to not celebrate Holi. Why? Because when we burn Holika, Holika is a Bahujan. How can that be? If you know the story of Holika, Holika and her brother Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyakashipu's son Prahlad. That's a story. It's a story of a family. So in the same family, we have different castes and burning of Holika who tried to kill a young boy is now a caste issue, right? So Equality Labs, the Sadan organization, they are all banking on the fact that Hindus will not speak up on many things, and that there are ways to attack us and use our own festivals and terminology to be weaponized against us. And we have to fight back. And I just want to bring up about Diwali also. Here is other collective is at UC Davis, which is the first university in public university in California that added caste as a protected category. They're saying Diwali is celebrated by Savarna Hindus. They decorate homes, eat sweets, and do pray to Brahminical casteist gods. I'd like to know which one is a Brahminical casteist god. Okay, naturally, these are extremely violent to Muslim, Bahujan, and others. My question to other collective and people who uses really silly thing is that who's an Adivasi in America? To that point, who's a Dalit Bahujan in America? Everybody who's here came as an accomplished person with skills. Most of the Dalit Bahujan community, if they are still, referring to themselves like that, in Canada and US, are employed in the tech companies, they run companies, they are millionaires. Of course, there are Hindus who are struggling too. But to stand and support these people, say that it's a misplaced ideology, it is trying to corrupt the systems here against us. And we have to push back against it. And McMaster, who is the McMaster bully? It is a Hindu Students Association. Okay, are very concerned about oppression of Muslim minority by Hindus, and they are apologizing here to our Muslim brothers and sisters. We stand in solidarity with you in this time of horror, and they are ashamed of actions of the community. They're ashamed to be Hindus. Why are they ashamed to be Hindus? It's because of us, the parents, right? We have not taught them to be proud Hindus. You've seen what happens in schools, and it really paints all of us, the entire community, as oppressors, right? Denying people their civil rights, and that we victimize somebody else, when in reality we are the victims. So it hides behind academic freedom, and we have to tear up that veil and expose the academic abuse that's happening. Now, our sacred symbols are also attacked, and you may know about the swastika fights going on in many states, because swastika is conflated as a Hitler Nazi symbol, and we know it's not true, right? And New York, Maryland, all brought up a bill. And because of Hindu advocacy of multiple organizations, including CoHNA, these states withdrew that. New Jersey did the best thing. They removed all references to the word swastika, and they just said what is being banned are Nazi symbols of hate. That came directly because of Hindu advocacy. California, 2 years ago, had a bill to condemn swastika as a hate symbol. The Hindu organizations got organized. They went and educated the Jewish lawmaker on her own history. She doesn't know. And I would say this, a lot of our Jewish friends in Canada and America only know their European history. They do not know their history in India. And it's incumbent upon ourselves to educate the Jewish community on that history, right? Because otherwise misunderstandings continue. So California is the first legislature to introduce the word Hakenkreuz. But that bill is not perfect. It still has references to Nazi swastika, which is an oxymoron. So I'm going to ask you to go check out CoHNA.org/swastika and look at the swastika education awareness campaign. We have brochures there. And remember, your own MP, Chandra Arya, printed out copies for every member of the Canadian legislature, right? So on swastika. So that's an amazingly positive action. And if you have not seen this movie, The Silence of Swastika, it's a CoHNA and a KTK collaboration. It's on YouTube. I would ask you to sit down and watch it a few times with your children and discuss it. It's very, very important they understand the truth. Our places of worship, I'm not going to go too much into it, because Canada has been suffering enormously from this. And in the US also, we have a lot of attacks. 6 temples attacked in California. One of them is a Fiji Hindu temple. The attackers, of course, can't differentiate between Fijian or Indian or anybody. They attack temples. And we are not sitting back. We have engaged with the city councils, the county, the law enforcement, the DAs, and explained to them who the perpetrators and criminals are, because the videos are available. And what is that whole concept? in attacking the Hindus when they have global political differences with India, right? And they are very receptive to understanding from us the root of the problem, because otherwise, when a case comes to court, they don't know context, and it's incumbent upon us to go educate the local police and everybody. And the differences between a temple versus a church or a mosque, where an imam or a pastor has a lot of authority, whereas a Hindu priest doesn't have that authority. We have the Hindu priest as an intermediary between the devotees and the deity, and we have temple administrators, who should be aware and on this topic, and we are working with them to do that. And I hope Canadians are also doing that with your temple administrators. In the US and California, actually in the Congress, Congresswoman Katie Porter has opened a bill called Pray Safe Act. And in the earlier version, just a couple of months ago, it only referred to attacks and arson on mosques and synagogues, churches, Jewish synagogue, but no reference to. So we have written, CoHNA has written a letter to her and asked her to keep in mind what is happening in California and around the country in the US and Canada, and to make sure that all religions are included as part of this act, and because we also deserve protection. And of course, people in Canada, you have heard horrific things where you're asked to leave the country, right? And in the US and particularly in Canada and California and Texas, our community has also faced verbal attacks, spitting at Hindus and calling us to go. We are not going anywhere. Why should we? Who should leave the country first? Think about it, right? And we have every right to be here, just like every other immigrant, right? So we are really standing firm and calling out these people who are causing violence against us because of issues they are under, issues that they want to fight for. But that's something that they need to take it to the ballot and get addressed, not by attacking people like this. And why only Hindus? If their issues are really about India, why are they only attacking Hindus when India has Christians, a large numbers of Muslims and others? They don't attack churches, Indian churches here in Canada or US. They don't attack Indian mosques in US or Canada. So this is more than just sort of a difference with India. There's a specific attack on a faith because they have issues with it. And then media. I just wanted to point out this particular one because it's recent about the Ram Mandir. Look at what New York Times said. All the media across the world outside of India and Southeast Asia said only talked about the destroyed mosque, nothing about the history of Ram Mandir. Right? And again, painting us as the oppressor. But here is your representative who really made a great statement about Ram Mandir in Parliament, and we send a kudos to him. And so again, these are opportunities I would ask if you're on social media, please amplify, right? Whether you're doing it on Chandra Arya's Twitter or CoHNA, because we need a lot of awareness happening on this. In public office, you are not left alone because in public office right now there is Bhavani Patel against Summerlee in Pennsylvania. Bhavani Patel has been painted as Hindutva, right-wing, RSS, etc. But Summerlee, at the same time, was cozying up to Indian American Muslim Council, Council of American Islamic Relations. She was going to go speak at the CARE conference until last week when she found out that there is a lot of opposition to it, and she, right? Again, it's activism. And Bhavani Patel is not the first one. Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, Aruna Miller, and you can see IAMC going after Aruna Miller asking her to apologize for her ties to Hindutva and return Hindutva. Whereas Indian American Muslim Council has been exposed as being connected to a global terrorist organization, but we don't call out, right? So I'm just giving you these as examples that we don't have safe spaces. That is because we haven't engaged. Just a couple more slides. Institutional targeting of Hindu diaspora communities, and I would say California is in the is in the heart of it all. But when California brought caste discrimination in the guise of a good thing happening, it was really profiling of Hindus via state policy, right? So we all came together. We held protest rallies, very successful protest rallies, and to the point that our legislative office members said they had never seen such crowds on any bill. They called this bill the hot bill because the calls they were getting, emails they were getting, were so many, and personal meetings we got with all of the lawmakers. We had about 40, 50 meetings with the Senate and the Assembly in California. But, when something sounds good, like banning caste discrimination, and all they know is what they learn in high school or middle school, they don't know how to vote. And this was promoted by the Democratic Party. So there's a lot happening in the United States. And this year being an election year, it's going to get more hot in terms of attacks at us. But at the end of the day, the sense prevailed. The governor vetoed it, saying we don't need this bill because the current law already provides all protection. We're happy, but this is not the end of it. We expect the bill to come back to California and come back to maybe the blue states in California. And Canadian Hindus, I would ask you to keep an eye out. Meet with your lawmakers, educate them on the topic, and say we are not talking about caste discrimination in India. When we talk about it in this country, it's being used as a weapon against us to deny us our freedoms afforded to all people in Canada. You have to explain to them what the difference is, because otherwise it's very confusing. But we did have a huge loss in that fight in California. This is Milind Makwana here. He was a very passionate warrior in this fight, and he lost his life. And so we are already starting to see how harmful these narratives are to our community, how it is affecting our health and relationships. And the only way to heal is to become an advocate. You can go, I'll put references in the chat box, but NCRI at the Rutgers University has put together a fantastic report on who is behind fomenting Hindu phobia online. You have to read it. You have to look at what the imagery is. This is taking the George Floyd, and this is not done by us, right? This imagery was created by online hate groups, particularly from Pakistan, Iran, etc. And you can see it's colorized in ways to show the victim as a Hindu and the person with a knee as a Muslim. We're not saying all Muslims are like this, but there is a particularly virulent cabal out there on the internet that uses these memes to spread Hindu phobia. I just also want to show something. Anti-Semitic tropes and imagery. So whatever has been used against the Jews is now being used against Hindus. We are facing the same level of vitriol and attacks as the Jews have faced for a long time. And if you think about it, Jewish advocacy has been going on for a long time, and they are still targeted viciously. So we are not even organized, right? We're just starting. How are we going to cope with the increasing level of Hindu phobia in the next several decades? How are our children going to cope with this? Are we going to run away? Like our community was forced to run away from Uganda. The rich and the successful people did not stand and fight there. They turned and ran too. So we cannot expect the billionaires and the venture capitalists, Hindus here to come to our help. At the end of the day, only you can help yourself. And when you help yourself, you are helping the community. Please remember that. Some other successes we have had, we have passed proclamations to condemn Hindu phobia. First was state of Georgia, and then Memphis, Tennessee, Fremont City, and city of Cupertino. We want everybody's help to get this positioned in every city, county, province, state, and federal level. So there is institutional recognition of Hindu phobia. Without that, like I said, we cannot claim redress. Hindu Parent Network, I want to put in a good word for them. I don't know how many of you have checked that out. It is an initiative of CoHNA, and they provide wonderful services, right? We provide workshops. We teach children and parents how to discuss caste, basics for middle schoolers and parents. We have done several sessions on Ramayana, lessons of Ramayana for current times. And then we have a program called the Beautiful Tree Program, where you can enroll your children and they learn about our history and science and civilization, which is missing in everyday, raising of our children. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this. You have seen how advocacy has helped in many, many areas. Actually, next Saturday, we are going to have a conversation with the parents in Fremont, California, who got Hindi added as a language option in Fremont Unified School District. This is something very simple. Any Hindu can do it. Doesn't have to do with your visa status. If your children are in school, you can go work with the school and explain why the community has a large Hindi speaking or Indians in the community, and we want our Hindi as a language in the school. So please join that next week. I will send it to the Indic Studies leaders, and you can register and join. Lastly, I just want to say, how can you help as individuals? Collective action, right? Join Hindu organizations like CoHNA. We volunteer, member, donors. Website is CoHNA.org, and join us on follow us on social media. Amplify our messages. Join our campaigns on Swastika, caste, Hinduphobia. We all learn from each other, right? What happens in Canada comes to US. What works in US can work maybe in a slightly different form in Canada. But we have to learn. And this forum today, I think, is a way of learning. Raising kids, I'm going to say, enroll them in programs like HPN. But then I would say in your family, talk about your family tree. Draw up a family tree on both sides of the parents. Talk about your family temples, right? The Kuladevata concept. Who else has it? Why don't we talk about it and show our pride in these things? Hindu history in North America. We have done a great show with the Indo-Caribbean community a few years ago. It's available on CoHNA official on YouTube. You can check out and see how Hindus and Muslims from India came to the American shores. And how many people when you ask, no, the connection between India and America in terms of discovery of America, very few, right? And canceling and reporting, report bullying, right? And especially it's very prevalent today on college campuses because of the Middle East conflict. Talk to your children, what is happening on campuses, and have a good conversation. So your child doesn't come back and challenge you to apologize for the atrocities of your ancestors. That's a great opportunity for you to engage with your child. Now, run for office. Please consider it should not be a scary thing. Join your corporate DEI team, run for school board, city, county jobs, then state and federal. There are many opportunities. Please do not overlook that, because if we are, we'll be the left behind. Or maybe we won't even be left behind. We may just not be there in, next 25, 30 years because we did not do the right thing. So now is the time to engage and advocate for Hindus. And I ask you to please do that. With that, thank you so much. And we'll stop sharing, and I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sudhaji. That was a very eye-opening session. And now we will open the floor for questions. Please raise your hand uh, to ask a question, and please make it a short. Yeah. Kumarji, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Sudhaji, for that very inspiring and informative talk. Um, as you have rightly said, we have to help each other in order to fight for justice and equity and inclusion. And this is our fight here in the Caribbean. I'm a fourth generation Indian. Most of us, like me, are fourth generation Hindus and Indians. We have come here since 1838 in the Western Hemisphere, almost 200 years, long before Vivekananda and so on. We were the first Hindus in the Western Hemisphere, and that is important. And we have been struggling up to this day to maintain our Hindu and Indian culture, religion, and heritage. So, in last time we were on Zoom together, you had promised to write a letter to the University of the West Indies in Trinidad because I had raised the issue in my presentation that there is a course on Christian theology, uh, which is funded by all taxpayers, Hindu, Muslims, Christians, everybody. But there is no similar course in the university on Hindu theology. So I have sent you the information, all that you had needed, you had requested. I'm still waiting on a response. And on another note, um, I want to announce, it's not public as yet, but just to this gathering, that we are having a Caribbean Hindu conference. It's entitled Hindu and the Hindu diaspora, so everybody's included, but we're focusing on Hindus in the Caribbean. It's going to be held in Guyana. You all know about Guyana now with the great discovery of oil, and everybody's rushing to Guyana now to make a fortune. So it's going to be on the 9th of October. So put that in your diary. We haven't sent out press releases as yet. So Sudha and everybody, Sudhaji, everybody here, I'd like you to come. There's no registration fee and anything like that. We will send out a call for presentations and a call for papers. And arising out of that conference, I'm going to end now, is the formation of the first Caribbean Hindu organization. As some of you would know, we are a chain of islands, and so we are kind of insular and insulated. Trinidad, Tobago, Guyana here, Suriname there. But for the first time, we are going to have a united Hindu Caribbean organization, and Sudhaji, we hope to and Prasadji, we hope to network with all of you. And it's going to be headed by a Guyanese living in Canada for over 30 years. And he has a network of a number of temples in Toronto and other areas in Canada. And his name is Pandit Rupnath, Rwpnauth Sharma. So thank you very much for the opportunity and listening to you.
I just want to ask everyone to give a big hand to Kumarji because Indo-Caribbeans have survived for 150 years against tremendous, tremendous pressures to convert, indentured laborers. How they have held together is a story for all of us. And that would not have happened. They would not have survived if they had not put their foot down and said, I'm a Hindu, I want to remain a Hindu, and nobody is going to stop me from that. So great job to the Indo-Caribbeans. Thank you. And regarding that letter, I'm going to challenge also, the Indic studies group to maybe take a look at that opportunity to write letters, maybe start, a letter that people can sign and send to the university that Kumarji has mentioned, along with the Hindus in America, because the islands are very a great destination for people for vacation. Why can't we go study, get a degree, or do a seminar course at the university on Hinduism? So I think we should bring up the value of adding Hinduism as a topic for undergrad, or at least start as a diploma in the university, and would be happy to talk about that with the leaders of the Indic studies.
Ji Sudha ji. Also, the island can be a Diwali destination because Trinidad and Guyana, they have Diwali Nagar over there. So that could be another angle to that. Yeah.
I
Prasad
think
ji, please
I
go
would
ahead.
be, yes, go ahead.
Namaste. So in Canada, I just wanted to ask you, how's the response from the lawmakers to CoHNA campaigns or all these campaigns in the US? Canada is
So
pretty much mixed.
yes. So our team has been successful to some extent, right, in reaching out to their local representatives, their representatives in the parliament, and engage in conversations, educating them on particularly Swastika and Hindu phobia, the temples, right? That's a big issue in Canada. So many times they get meetings, but sometimes it takes 100 times. I just want to say it takes a lot of persistence. You cannot just send a letter and expect answers. You have to call. You have to keep doing it many times before you get a meeting. But that's the nature of things. So we have some success. We have on the Canadian team we have Rishabh Saraswat, we have Jay Mehta, we have Mittal Desai. We have a lot of people who have successfully gotten meetings with the lawmakers. They've also pushed back on school curriculum, in the sense that when we find that there's something happening, they call them out, we write letters, and they respond or take it off. So advocacy matters, yes.
Vivek ji, please go ahead.
Namaste, Sudha. I'm an attorney from the India, living in the holy city of Ujjain, and also practicing in New Delhi. I'm asking you that how we can help from the indigenous country, and any kind of the columns we should write, or we can how we can help to the people or students who are going from the India to the US and Canada, because if we give any kind of the counseling from before, so they can have some mind that how they have to live over there, or how they can connect with the CoHNA, um, what kind of the program we should run, how we can help it.
Very good question. So when I go to India, I go to Kochi and I travel, and I speak on the local TV channels about what is happening in the US, and they're shocked. They think of us as very successful community, and they're really shocked that we are facing this. So one thing I'm going to tell you, and the same message I put out on my talks in India is that Indian students coming to the United States, a lot, and there's a great article about the foreign students in America and Canada who, when they are Indian, they are not state sponsored. We are the only community that's not state sponsored. These kids come either with their own money or with loans from India. All the children coming from India needs to sign a piece of paper that the government puts in front of them to say they will not engage in Hindu phobic activities in the US. They will not come and demand caste equity in the US. They will not take actions to malign and profile the Hindu diaspora who have worked very hard to establish lives here. A lot of times the problems we are facing are from students from India who are now try to champion these issues. So something is wrong with the way those kids are being raised, and they should not be allowed to come here without having consequences. So either the government has to say, you sign this paper, and if we find that you are engaged in these kinds of things, you will be brought back, or your loan is canceled and you're on your own. So there has to be some consequence. Number two, the Indian billionaires are funding Hindu-phobic atrocity literature at these major universities like Harvard and Stanford and other places. Rajiv Malhotra ji, who's well known, has called them out many, many times to stop blind donation to these universities. If you're funding, be very clear what you're funding for. Make it just STEM, right? And AI and something, and with clear objectives. Do not have that money go to South Asian studies, ethnic studies, which are poisonous wells where all of this atrocity is generated, promoted, and directed at the Hindu diaspora. So, two things you can do. Make sure that billionaires are held accountable to their donation to American University. Number two is make sure the students are accountable for their actions in the US because they should not come here and be Hindu phobic.
Gautamji, please go ahead.
Namaste, everybody. Namaste, Sudhaji and the team. This is my first time. I did meet with CoHNA people once before, but great. My name is Gautam Sevda. I'm out of Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. And we are so fortunate that 5 years ago, like me and a couple of other leaders from our community gathered together because here in Alberta, we have about 45 to 50 organizations from different states of India. So the irony is that all these organizations they work just to celebrate Diwali or Holi or their festivals and to engage their own people, but they don't communicate to each other. So somehow we had this idea that how to break the ice and how to bring all these people together. And in last 5 years we were able to do that. In 2023 and year 2022 in Calgary, first time in Canada, we had more than 5,000 people celebrating 15th August together and this last in 2023 our premier of Alberta, she came to our event. She was there for 2 hours and it happened first time in I think in Canadian history. And since we all came together, like all these politicians, they are smart, they need the votes. So we put a presentation in front of all the leader that our population is more like over 4% in Alberta and we can be the game changer. And we went to each and every MLA, and we are still doing it, an MP, taking appointments in their constituency and showing them. We had just made a presentation, just like you made, Sudhaji, which has like Hindu phobia, which has temple attacks, which has like all these things going on, and nobody even knows like what's going on here. So, like fortunate enough, just last week we had an invitation from government of Alberta and all like we over 30 leaders from our province from all these different associations. We went and had a meeting with the Premier Smith here in Alberta and see like we just having these dialogues that what need to be done. So number one thing was that our in curriculum like the grade 3 there is no Hinduism added there. So they temporarily removed everything now and they're planning to add that. So when we come together and work as a force, like everybody listens then. Now we also talk about swastik, and we are talking about like about Hindu phobia, and also we are asking government to appoint a person who can advocate for Hinduism. They haven't promised that yet, and we ask the government to put our people on the boards because what happens is that all these forces we are fighting for, they are all organized. Somebody is there behind them. They are funding them. They are educating them. They have big brains behind them, but we are abandoned people. Like there's nobody behind us. Like Sudhaji, like all of us, we are just somehow putting the stones together to make something happen. Like there is no central channel which helps us financially, which helps us in the legal matters, which educates us, and our people are like our people think that they're making good money. Of course they are, and they don't really see the seriousness of like what's coming in next 10, 20, 30 years down the road, because we're gonna be gone, but our kids gonna be staying here and they don't even understand the education which we have because we came back from back home. So my question, Sudhaji, is that um, I think we are doing great in terms of making money and being professional in North America, but there is not a single channel which binds us. Like we are still divided. Somebody is following Swaminarayan, somebody is following.
Gautamji, let Sudhaji answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, please. So, can you please suggest something that we can?
So first of all, kudos to you and your team in Alberta for doing the work you're doing and getting the leaders engaged and coming out. So I would say, in addition to talking about Hindu phobia, you also need to have, we're creating something called a sensitivity training on Hindus itself. Because people don't understand what the heck we do. And like you said, the myriad of denominations we have, we are all Hindus, but we practice it differently. So like in Fremont City, when 6 temples were attacked, one was a Fiji temple, right? Fiji Hindu. The attackers can differentiate between anybody. But I would, so I would ask you maybe to think about representing the Hindus and Hinduism and the ways it's different from what they understand in terms of the Christian churches and the Muslim mosques and how the leadership works and all of that. It's very important because they don't know. We haven't ever talked about it. So let us not worry about unified Hindu in the sense of one, right? Our beauty is really about the beauty of our culture is that we are the most diverse on earth. But when it comes to activism and advocacy, you do need to kind of team up and decide, here is the approach we are going to take on the Swastik bill, or here's the approach we are going to take on this Toronto, or whoever is doing a cast, and then you execute in your own ways. It has to be effective, but you have to execute. So that's how I would say you can sort of approach it. But really, you need to tell people about who a Hindu is. Most people don't know. So when we say Hindu phobia, they don't even know who a Hindu is, right? I'm happy to talk to you separately, right, Gautamji?
Arvindji, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Prakashji, and thank you so much, Sudhaji, for this opportunity. Great presentation. There's a lot to learn. So I'll just keep my perspective very simple and quick. See, the challenge what I feel, because I have been studying Hinduism very actively for last 3-4 years. And what I understand that we are trying to answer the questions in the Western framework using Indian framework or Hindu framework. And I think this is the challenge because we need to answer the questions in the Western framework, the framework that they understand. And we appreciate, what you just described, unity and diversity and all those things, which are good internally, but this is what West does not understand and cannot understand. And also we have to recognize that there is a lot of willful blindness on the West part. It is not that they don't know, they know, but they deliberately are
Arvindji,
perpetrating.
please put your question, please.
Yeah, exactly. I'm coming to that. So the question is, are we doing something to put our perspective in the Western framework, not in the Hindu framework?
Yeah, exactly. So when we talk about caste, we are not talking about it in the Hindu Indian sense. We cannot, because that has no relevance here. So this is where we have to learn how to use the right terminology in the US so people understand that this is a civil rights issue for the Hindus, that we are being victimized. So really we need to think about and talk about things in ways the American public understands, right? Even though American media and academia are intent, and Canadian are intent on abusing us. And this is where we also want to call out the donors to these big universities. These big Indians write checks for 100 million, 50 million. Why? To create stuff to abuse us. So I agree with you. You cannot always talk about it in the Indian context. We have to have language that reflects the reality in the US, right? So the examples I gave you are all about how we have used language, we have used American ways of protesting and Canadian ways of protesting and representing our issues with the law. But I agree with you. Our people in the community get very passionate. We have been emotional people. A lot of times we don't stick to the facts, not facts, stick to the terminology, right? We can go off in different ways. So we have to make sure that whoever is interacting with the officials or whatever are able to articulate, our arguments in very efficient ways. That itself is a learning process.
Thank you, Sudhaji. I think we have got a good picture about the situation now with your presentation, with all the facts. It was a wonderful presentation, and we look forward to working with CoHNA here in Canada and in USA. And this is a long-term problem which we have to take care of. Yeah. So thank you again, and thank you, audience, for attending.